Hey guys, Lou here from Jersey Shore Fabricators. On this week's episode of How Not to Build a Mustang, we tear into the 65 Mustang that was put together backwards. Okay, so as I said in the previous video, there are certain things that you don't do when you're getting paid to do a job. Case in point, this customer, along with everything else that the guy was supposed to be doing, one of his jobs was supposed to actually clean out the gas tank, repaint the gas tank. Now, when I look at the top of the gas tank, it looks great. It's been cleaned, it's been painted. It actually looks really, really good. Here's part of the problem. If we look down inside the fuel tank, let's see if I could do this. If we look down inside the fuel tank, what you'll see is a whole lot of rust down there. And it is almost full of terribly, terribly bad gas. This thing was never emptied. And the way I know that he didn't do what he was supposed to is that if we look at the bottom of the gas tank, it's rusted. And, well, there's grass on the bottom of it. I'm surprised this thing isn't leaking all over the place. Yeah, so that is quite a problem here. Now, one of the other things, before he painted it, all the welding should have been done, but as we look at the back of the car, that's the back of the car. All right, over here we see original metal, and then over here, he kind of tried to, let me see if I can get this, lap this joint. Except that where he welded it really didn't lap the way it was supposed to. There's one spot weld, and then we got these booger welds down here on the end. I don't understand what was going through this guy's mind. And these icicles you see hanging off of here, there, that's clear coat or primer. I'm not exactly sure what it is, but there are other areas on the car, like on the bottoms of the rockers, where there are icicles from the amount of clear he put on and just ran it all down. So we're going to get into fixing this. Okay, so what's going to happen here? This piece is bent and comes over and is spot welded back here behind where this is painted. We don't want to get into any more paint work than we have to per the customer. Again, we're working on a budget. Not a cheap guy, just, you know, we're on a budget, and if we repaint this, then I'm going to end up body work and all that, and that's going to be a lot of hours. So basically what I'm doing is, you could see where the guy originally had the metal going to and where his spot welds were. So what's going to happen is I'm cutting this back to where this metal ends and this begins, where I can then take my body hammer, work that down nice and flat. Now once I weld this and grind that, that'll completely disappear as far as that part. Up here, like I said, that means that we're getting into everything under here where it's already been spot welded. And that's going to require some major surgery. Down here on the bottom, this is hilarious. Down here on the bottom, I already started cutting this out. However, I got into the inside of the car because inside the trunk area here, where all this is, as you can see, where is it? Right there. This is all plastic in here. So we got to make a decision about that. Okay, now this is pretty hilarious. Inside the trunk area where the gas tank goes. Okay, so there's tail light, there's the trunk latch, gas filler. Anyways, what we got here is this really, really thin piece of metal that wasn't even welded on the end here, but all this that I ground back is fiberglass right along here. He did body filler all along here, and what he did paint isn't even sticking, because you can see here where it's just flaking right off. Yeah. So basically the plan is, he did put in new metal on the other side here that I showed you before. So I'm going to cut this right along here. I'm going to fabricate a new piece, transfer these holes to the new piece. This from the factory goes under, this piece here from the factory goes under here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pop a couple holes in it, plug weld it there, and then this should be solid again, and hopefully it doesn't have all the, or at least some of the flex that's in it now. And this is all pretty thin, but I'll do what I can. I'm sorry, I'm not even paying attention to what I'm doing with the camera here. Try to keep this from flexing as much as possible, is what I was getting at. So I'll show you how we do that. Okay, so one real simple what I've done is I've taken a piece of 18 gauge, put a brake on, 90-degree brake on one bend, about a 30-degree brake on the other bend, cut it to width, put a couple holes on this end for spot welds underneath the car. I also measured where those holes were going to be that have to go in, and I notched it out so that when this all fits together, it fits together like that, and everything disappears once the welds are ground down. And more importantly, it's one solid piece of metal. Okay, so at this point, I'm pretty much done with the trunk area. Now this is the original part of the car. You can see, you know, is rust and pitted. We're going to treat that rust with a rust converter and then finish that out. Over on this side is where the guy's original piece was, and then down underneath here is where I added the whole length of cross member up to where the corner is here to make it all look like something. I had a little bump here, but this is all going to get body worked and filled. On the inside of the trunk, all the welds are ground down, but you can see old metal, new metal. They all come along down to this end. So for the most part, again, working with the budget that we're working under, that part of it's done. Now the only other spot I found, actually kind of found it by accident, is right over here inside the inner fender, the trunk pan extension, excuse me. There's a big old hole right in the middle of that, and again, here's more of that clear coat, icicles hanging down here from when the guy painted it. So I'm going to go ahead and get this cut out and prep this whole area for a new panel, and then I should be able to finally start moving forward with the car. Alright, we'll catch up with you. Now here's another example of what not to do. I don't like to use bad language, but the only word I could come up with here is fucktard. So on the panel extension, right here where my hand is, this should all be closed in. This is the inside of the trunk. And if you look close enough, you'll see that was cut out with a zip wheel, cutoff wheel, something. And he never put anything back in there. Well, the problem is the car is painted. All right, that's residue left over from him cutting and buffing it. But the car is painted. So now I've got to try to figure out how to fix this without damaging the paint. It is impossible. And honestly, I got the same thing on the other side. So looks like my my work just got a little more difficult. Incredible. Alright, so when I said I was going to step back and punt, here's the plan. On the inside of the quarters where this piece is actually missing, this is the rear third of the outer wheelhouse. There was already one with the car, and I've already gone ahead and ordered another one. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut off what I need. I'm going to trim it to fit. This side here gets bonded to the inside of the fender well. All right. This part's already still in the car, so I'll make a line and I'll weld it across the cut line, fit it to the car, and the whole thing will disappear. It's not going to get hidden by body fill or anything. It's just going to be welded, ground smooth, and then of course it's going to get undercoating underneath that, so it'll disappear. Using something like this panel's 30 bucks versus spending hours trying to cut metal and make these brakes and also make this compound curve here. And can I do it? Yeah. I mean, you know, I've got the tools, I've got the skills, but why? I already got the piece, I make a cut, a couple of cuts later, and it's done. So, here we go. Right, so inside the driver's side rear wheel well is what I was talking about. You can see the hack job this guy did cutting out the old one. And like I said, it's just amazing because he put a new quarter on and painted it without fixing this in here. And we can't repaint the car. So we're getting a little creative. So out of that piece that I cut out before, that's going to fit in there. Like that. We're going to bond it along this edge with body panel adhesive. I've already made a cut line, so we get a straight cut across here and then coming down the weld tube, and then we'll grind that down, work it from the inside as much as we can, and unfortunately it's going to be as good as it gets back here. I'd love to be able to cut out whatever it was that was done. You could see a ridge here and more goop back here. Not exactly sure what he did or anything like that, but that's all we could do. And a handy tip when you're going to be working in an area like this, you're going to need an assortment of tools, as simple as it sounds. Unfortunately, I don't have a body saw. So I'm going to be using a regular 3-inch air cutoff wheel. I got some used blades that are, or used wheels that are a little smaller in diameter to get in some of these small areas. And then I'll be using a little die grinder here to be able to get in and clean up the edges exactly the way I want. Hopefully I don't screw this up and we'll get a nice tight fit in here.